Hi, everyone. This is Human Growth Lecture 7.1 and 7.2. So let's begin. This is early adulthood. So physical changes, all the point ones are physical changes. So physical changes in early adulthood. This is peak time for physical capacity and doing things and muscle strength, body, coordination, you name it, it's the best time of your life, you know. You've become aware of yourself in more detail than ever before. Your brain is now fully developed. That occurs at 25 for most people. There's some research saying for men it can go as long as 27. But all of this is making you the quote unquote best that you can be. So there are some shifts. Your senses are sharp, all your uh, vision, auditory, gustatory, olfactory, tactile, all are occurring at the same time. There are subtle changes, but it doesn't occur uh, to the point that it interferes. You'll see more of that as you get older, of course. Motor functioning is the best. Professional athletes tend to peak during this time, and they tend to peak until about 30. Beyond that, it varies with the individual person. Eye-hand coordination is at its best, muscle strength, and reaction time. There can be, uh, you know, uh, disabilities, and ways of coping with those disabilities is something that has to be learned for each individual uh, challenge that you may have. Sometimes uh, you don't have the information that you need, or you don't believe you have the help out there. But with the American with Disabilities Act, there's quite a bit of resources and help out there. So just finding that information and finding the people to help you. And of course, prejudice to people who are different can have an effect on your life and challenges you may face. Physical fitness, it's recommended at this time period that you should be spending at least 30 minutes of exercise 5 times a week. The advantages of regular exercise, again, increases cardiovascular fitness, so it improves that heart, lung capacity, increases. Muscles become stronger. You want to keep those muscles strong, especially for later on. As you get older, there can be some um, debilitating issues that can occur if you don't keep your muscles strong. Your body becomes more flexible and maneuverable if you're participating in physical activity. You can reduce osteoporosis, which is what it can lead to later on as you get older, thinning of the bones. It does help your immune response. It can decrease stress, anxiety, and depression, and it gives you a sense of control and makes you feel like you've accomplished something. So that alone, the psychological component, and it can increase your life. So again, just a guideline to years uh, of life gained because of physical fitness. Again, don't have to memorize the chart. Good nutrition. Good nutrition isn't always cheap, right? Lately, with uh, the economy, nothing seems to be cheap, right? So, what is recommended? A low-fat diet, including whole grain foods, vegetables, fruits. That Mediterranean diet is also very, very popular. Milk and calcium are important for osteoporosis. A good uh, Greek yogurt uh, with the protein can help. If you're not a big milk drinker, people should try to reduce their salt intake, use salt substitutes or other seasonings. There's a lot of seasonings out there to use. We know that salt can increase blood pressure, water retention. So, and as you get older, you're going to have to pay attention to your calorie intake, especially if you start to slow down physically. If your life is crazy and you're working jobs and taking care of a family and doing all that, sometimes exercise is the last thing on your list of things to do. So, if you're exercising less, you may want to watch, your calorie intake so you don't gain weight rapidly. Obesity is a problem here in the United States. Your BMI is at the 95th percentile for adults of the same age and sex, and about 36% of adults in the United States are classified as obese. 70% of adults age 20 and over are overweight. The world average weight for adults is 137 pounds. The US average weight for adults is 180 pounds. Big difference. Again, just a graph showing that for my visual learners. Young adults for health, you're least susceptible to colds and illnesses. Some of the leading causes of death for young adults are accidents, AIDS, cancer, heart disease, and regrettably also suicide. Again, more males complete suicide, more women, females attempt suicide. And it has to do with the method of choice for suicide. Women tend to cut themselves or take overdoses of drugs. Men tend to use more extreme measures like a gun in the mouth, a gun to the head, hanging themselves, jumping off of a very tall structure, things like that, things that are going to be more certain for death. Drug and alcohol abuse can really hasten secondary aging. So, these are environmental things that can affect your, physical age. Men are more apt to die from accidents than women are, and African Americans have twice the death rate as Caucasians. The murder rate in the United States is significantly higher than other countries, and we know that's been a real problem here in the United States and even here in the Pittsburgh area. So, when we talk about death of our young people, it is something that the psychological community is actually concerned about. Cultural beliefs can make a difference on if people go to the physician or receive medical care. Also, do they have adequate health care so they can afford to do this? Many other countries around the world have, a national health care. We do not here in the United States. So sometimes if people have the decision to make, do I go to the doctors or do I feed my family? The doctor is not what they're doing. They're feeding their family. And review, sample question, sample question. So some of the other things that are going on that we're coping with at this time period, stress, and we've all been there and we will be there on and off throughout our lives, but the stress is different at this age. Sometimes stressors can be pleasant and sometimes unpleasant. An example, pleasant if you're planning a wedding, all the details, everything that you have to do and get in place, and everything has to be done by a certain day. That's definitely a stressor, but it's pleasant. Or planning for a baby, again, everything that you have to get in place. When we talk about negative stressors, they're not hard to come up with, when you think about job and relationships and paying the bills and feeding your family, going to college and being able to get all your work done, plus take care of your family, plus, you know, um, get a job and be able to pay for all this. So there are a lot of uh, problems that can be psychological because of stress. So if you've ever had to go to a pain management clinic, say you were having back pain or that, when your intake is done, they do a survey and they ask you all these questions. And quite a few of the questions are psychological questions because there is a known link between stress and psychological issues and our body and how the body functions. When we look at stress, we have two main components. We have primary appraisal, which means when you first look at a situation, you know right from the start that it's going to cause you stress. So, when you took this class and found out that you have to cover basically birth to death in 5 weeks because the final's the last week, that's going to cause you stress. You know that right from the start. That's going to happen. Secondary appraisal is when at first you don't realize that it's going to cause stress or give you any concern until after you're in the situation. So you have a job and you're given a promotion and you're told, hey, you're going to get a 10,000 raise. And you're like, yes, I'm getting a raise. Oh, all right. And you find out that, it's not too bad and everything's working out. And about 2 months later, your boss says, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, once a month you have to travel across the state to do this. And you're like, well, I have a family and a dog, and I have to get someone who's gonna, care for them while I'm gone. It's like, what? Doesn't matter. It's part of your new job. Oh, and by the way, we don't reimburse you for your travel expenses. So you can see this is now going to cause you stress. It didn't before. So that's what we mean by secondary appraisal. There can be positive or negative stress, and it can occur at the exact same time. And how one circumstance or situation affects one person that same situation might affect another person completely differently. Okay? So if you don't like giving presentations, just the thought of giving a presentation can cause you a lot of stress. And then there are other people that will get up in front of the class, they'll volunteer to go first. Hey, I want to do this, and they love it. Same situation, different amounts of stress and how people deal with it. Some things that are ambiguous or confusing can produce a lot of stress, or if things are uncontrollable or unpredictable, those can control the amount of stress that we may experience. Anytime you have the ability to control a situation, you have the ability to control the amount of stress that you're going to be put out because of that situation. And if you have to multitask, we're not talking just, walk and chew gum at the same time. If you have to multitask, so you're taking care of your family, and at the same time you have to, prepare meals, and your parents are calling you because they're elderly, and you have to deal with that. And you find out you have a paper due in your class that you didn't know you had due, and you still haven't studied for the test, and that's what we need, multitasking. You're doing it all at the same time, trying to juggle just like a circus worker. So what are the consequences, stress? Headaches, backaches, skin rashes, indigestion, chronic fatigue, colds, you name it. There's tons of research done on college students within 10 days of final exams. And like almost 50% of students have some sort of reaction to stress, cold or fatigue. Again, you're spending a lot of time worrying about something, and then all of a sudden it's done. And your body relaxes, but stress, we know, reduces your T cells, which fight off they're your immune system. They fight off infections, and they're reduced because of the stress, so you get sick. So how do we cope with stress? We have problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Both are used by both sexes, men and women. We tend to see more men choose as their first choice, problem-focused, and women choose emotion-focused, but it's not, a guarantee that's the only type that one uses or other. It's just a pattern that we see. Problem-focused coping is that you deal with a situation. So let's say you're driving to class and you have a flat tire and you're stressed because you have a flat tire and you're not sure how to change the flat tire. So you call a friend and your friend comes and changes the tire. You dealt with the situation. You're now on your merry way and the stress is gone. Emotion-focused coping, you have that flat tire, you don't know how to change that tire. You call AAA and they're going to be an hour. People on like the West End Bridge are giving you the finger and yelling profanities at you. So you call a friend and say, hey, can you just talk to me? I'm, really upset and stressed out because all this is going on. And you deal with your stress in an emotional way, that social support. Venting is another term for it that you might remember from intro. And that can help you deal with the stress. It still hasn't changed your tire, but until it's time to get the tire changed, when the road crew comes to change your tire, it reduces your stress. There's defensive coping. Uh, some people, if it's a serious enough situation that's causing a lot of stress, you got caught doing something you shouldn't have been doing, you deny it. No, didn't do it. No, no, didn't do it at all. Or sometimes it's just unconscious. You just distort the picture of what really happened, so it wasn't as bad as it really was. Uh, you can block out emotions. You can kind of insulate yourself, kind of uh, almost though as a stoic type person where you don't show any emotions. You can't let yourself do that because it could lead for you to be more stressed. And an inappropriate way, of course, of coping would be drugs and alcohol. We can add to that smoking. We can add to that any type of addiction could develop because of these methods. Other coping strategies try to control the situation, get a handle on it, don't fall into learned helplessness that can cause even more stress. Instead of thinking of something as a threat, which is definitely a negative, think of it more as a challenge. uh, Point of view, you know, looking at the situation, revisiting it. Um, think of it as the cloud with the silver lining. Revisit your attitude toward the situation. Use mindfulness. Think through what you're doing. Find social support. Even the thought that someone is supporting you, even if they're not there, you believe they're going to be there to support you. It's like the placebo effect. It actually will reduce your stress. Use relaxation techniques. You might have learned some of these when you were taking intro or if you take a stress management class. Deep breathing exercises, just relaxing all the mother muscle groups in your body, closing your eyes and listening to some quiet music, some white noise, uh, taking a walk, enjoying someone else's company, just just relax. If you're stressed out and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're depressed, don't go home and watch like Titanic. They all die. Okay? Don't don't do that. Go home, watch a comedy or go on YouTube and watch, puppies and kittens and do something that's positive that can relax. Play with your kids. Enjoy some sort of game. Get lost on Facebook for a little bit of time or Instagram and just give yourself some time. Maintain a healthy lifestyle and take a break. Sometimes you just need a break. I always tell my students, when you're studying for finals, all-nighters don't work. They just don't. Study a little bit at a time. If you didn't do that and you have to pull a long study session, don't study for 3 hours straight. Study for an hour. Take a 15, 20-minute break. Study for 40 minutes. Take a half-hour break. Study for a half hour. Take a half-hour break. Break it up that way. Give yourself a break, and that can help reduce the stress. And think about it. Without stress, life would be boring. It'd be dull. We all have it. Everyone has stress. How they deal with it makes a difference. So, dealing with stress review and sample question, and sample short answer question. Okay. Uh, okay. Let's continue. Share my screen. 7.2. So cognitive functions of early adulthood. Okay. Sorry about that. So when we talk about intellectually what's going on, there are very few things that are occurring in young adulthood. Um, According to some researchers like Piaget, and that's not true. There are things going on. It's not like your brain just stops being used when you hit, early adulthood. So, looking at how we solve problems, relativism, how we relate with people and situations in our job, etc. Uh, just actual learning in general is, a key thing. Geez, sorry about this. So, let me back up. So, talking about post-formal thinking, uh, the Harvard University students were studied and they looked at all the different views and how we now hold multiple views. So we can think two different things are right, even though there may be partially right in one aspect or the other. So, conflicting views can be looked at from different standards. When we talk about shaky stages of development, I have them down in the notes. So I'm going to pop down to the notes here. Uh, should be able to see them, I think, if it lets me. There they are. So again, inquisitive stages, childhood, early adolescence, and this is where we're learning, achieving, you know, stage is when we have some long-term goals, things that we want to work on. The responsible stage, again, middle adulthood, dealing with family, friends, and ourselves. The executive stage, when we look at the world and take on that view of helping and interacting and engaging with the world. And then, of course, the last stage is when we focus on ourselves and did our life have meaning and what can we do in our time left in this world that we can leave as like a legacy to everyone. So again, just the stages of development. Don't have to memorize the chart. What's going on at this time period? Many people get married or have a child, buy a house, buy a car, you know, uh, they're getting a job and dealing with new people and new groups. They move to a different location because of work or maybe they go on to post uh, um, bachelor's education. They go for their master's or for a doctorate. Sternberg, remember him maybe from intro and his triarctic theory of intelligence that are their three components of this. He was compared to also when we talk about Howard Gardner, and if you remember his nine different types of intelligence, and he just Sternberg kind of just shortened it. So those three components of intelligence, uh, how do they deal with real world situations, uh, prior experience, things that they've learned from the world, so kind of like practical intelligence, common sense, analytical, so that would be your verbal, spatial, mathematical problem solving abilities. And again, we mentioned practical and emotional intelligence. Practical intelligence, we know not everyone has practical intelligence or common sense. Sometimes you wonder why, but it is something that's a sense that has to be kind of developed. Emotional intelligence, this is one of the key things a lot of times now in business of being aware of how to express our emotions, how to read other people's emotions, especially in business or if you work in an industry where you're working with others or with a group. Very, very important to be able to do that. And many people find that emotional intelligence actually is more important than IQ. When we talk about creativity, this is the artistic side. Creativity um, can be on many, many levels. It can be writing or ideas or art or music, self-expression is something that people who are creative are willing to do. They're willing to take risk, to do things that may not be the norm. They kind of push the boundaries. And not all people reach that peak in their development of this sense until they get to early adulthood. Again, don't have to memorize the chart, but just a good understanding of where it's at. Review, 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 sample question, sample question. So higher education, who's there? We see a group of students, depending on the particular area, but it's still primary white and middle class, where minority students are increasing. College improves economic well-being in most cases. If you can get beyond the cost of going to college. So all of you that are going to CCAC right now, smart move. You're getting a great education for a heck of a lot less than people were paying at some other institutions. And enrollment by race and ethnicity, again, just to give you a visual image, not to have to memorize. There is a gender gap. More women do enroll than men, and the gap is bigger for African Americans. Entry-level jobs are more available for men, so that's a possibility of why we don't see as many men going to college right away, because there are many other opportunities, maybe not as many for women. And a lot of times colleges are looking for that diversity. So they're, you know, looking at an aspect of let's get a whole wide range of people to the campus that can be, beneficial for everyone. And it's never too late to go to college. I think I mentioned on the first night the oldest student that I've ever had here at CCAC was 85 years old, and her husband had told her she would never go to college under him, as uh, his wife. Wife of his was going to college over his dead body. And the day he died, she registered for classes at CCAC. So, and she did very well. There are gender biases still out there in the world. Prejudice and discrimination towards women is still part of college life and in society. Classes in education, social sciences have been more women for years. Classes in sciences had been more men. We are seeing a huge change in that, which is a great thing to see, a little more equaled out. Attrition rate for women in the sciences is twice as high as it is for men. Other differences that we see, men tend to view themselves above average on several topics when it comes to academic success. And we know from research, many times teachers call on men more often than women and make more eye contact. Males receive more help, more time to answer, and more positive reinforcement. So it's benevolent sexism, but it's still sexism. Other stereotypes we see, women and African Americans perform less well in college, sometimes due to academic disidentification. In other words, they may not have uh, been put into the classes that they needed, or they didn't have the background that they needed to succeed in those classes. And again, the negative stereotypes are still there, and slowly they're getting worked out of the college system, but we still see them in like the high school system and the elementary school systems. There is an adjustment to life. Campuses that have on-campus housing, you may have heard of the college freshman 15, where many young people gain weight their first year of college. And that's because many colleges and universities require their freshmen to buy the 19 meal plan, whether you eat 19 meals or not. And most college students don't have the extra monies laying around, so they're going to eat all those meals because they're already paid for. And most colleges have unlimited food, so it's more like a buffet, and you can take as much as you want every single meal that you want. So it's not unusual to hear that people gain some weight. It's not always easy, especially if you've never really been away from home before. Managing things, maybe in high school you didn't have to study, but now all of a sudden you have different curriculum, more responsibility on your own time and trying to, it's not as scheduled. So you have an 8 o'clock class. you don't feel like going, so you just don't go. You don't go to high school. They're going to call home if you don't show up. Nobody's going to do that for college. Once you're in college, they are your grades, your assignments, your everything. Your parents have no involvement at all. Things that we see that college students tend to have problems with, you know, distress, stress, anger, anxiety can linger for a long time and affect people's well-being. They may feel they're unable to cope. They feel hopeless. They don't know why. Sometimes close relationships sometimes take a long time to happen if you're going to a college out of state and you don't know anybody there, just meeting your roommate. If you don't kind of hit it off or contact each other ahead of time, you can have some issues and it can cause physical symptoms to occur too. And again, just a chart, review, sample question, and sample short answer. So that was lectures 7.1 and 7.2, and I hope you have an awesome day.